What's up, chat?
I'm in my Trevor accoutrement. Y'all may notice that this is the same shirt that Rob Adams is wearing on stream yesterday. There's not very many of these. I think we only made like 25 of these shirts. Oh, this is my custom whisper that one of my best friends made for me. He built this out of like 3D printed plastic and stuff like that. This has a working scope. These spikes here on the cheek rest they just dig into your face. Yeah, what else do I have today? I got some cool things going on. I got my Hunter hoodie back on again. I've got a Titan hoodie as well. There's the Titan symbol. It's got the Warlock symbol on the back.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back. It's good to see y'all. Welcome to our.
For any of you who don't know, I left Bungie in 2019 at the very end of the year. So I was, you know, we're talking like 5 years ago. I did a Bungie Foundation charity stream around the time of Build Against Cancer. If you guys know Dr. Lupo, there's this really famous moment where Dave Samuel was like sort of shoutcasting. He's making sound effects during this PvP match, and I was playing a Night Stalker, and I like wiped the whole team out with a super.
Still alive. That's the best play of the day.
So that was pretty fun. So in this shot, we've got Tom. He's on the left of the couch there, and Rob. He's in the middle. He's wearing the Trevor shirt. He just like me for real. I worked very closely with Rob on Whisper. He was the art lead. I was the design lead, but it was basically like our combined efforts. Like we came up with the Whisper. Like that was our whole thing. And I remember the pitch happened in a meeting of the seasons team, and it was more of just like an open question. And Rob was like, "Hey, what if we brought back Black Spindle?" And I was like, "Well, fuck yeah, dude, that's amazing."
And we had all this nostalgia for the Vault of Glass and Black Spindle. I mean, one day we were just sitting in a conference room and we're like, what if we just made another Black Spindle mission, but we made it a lot bigger?
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that was literally what I said was I went, fuck yeah. And everyone else was like, oh shit, that's crazy. Like, I don't know if we could do that. You know, we were worried about scope, all kinds of other shit, but that's just the type of person I am. I'm like, hell yeah, let's dream big. Let's just take a shot. Let's try to do something crazy and make this, you know, a love letter, give it back to the community, give something to the players that really mattered. I knew how the systems worked, and I was like, we can do this. And I had ideas immediately, and I was like ready to go. So we were off to the races. Let's let these guys talk for a moment. Tom's a really cool dude. I didn't get to work directly with Tom when I started there. He was on the campaign team, and I think he did the Red War campaign. Really fantastic dude. Through my time there, he was one of the design leads on the Vanguard teams. He and Rob have been responsible for a lot of the really cool stuff that you guys have seen. Tom and I chatted when I was still there about like what the future was for Mithrax. So it was on the planet Titan in D2. You did this world quest on Titan. You had to investigate a bunch of Fallen that were kind of wily, and they were trickier than other Fallen. I was trying to tell the story that they were like smarter and whatever. My inspiration for that was this movie called Enemy Mine, which is really weird. It's with one of the Quaids. The main character is a starfighter pilot, and he's fighting this alien race. They both shoot each other down and they crash land on this planet. And the alien is like this lizard man. And it's called Enemy Mine because when he goes over to kill the enemy lizard pilot, he realizes it's a female and she's got an egg. He basically finds humanity in the lizard that is trying to murder him. So taking that inspiration, I went with this character Mithrax. I really liked a lot of the lore from D1 about how Mithrax, or like the Fallen as they aren't intrinsically evil, like the Hive, or I guess the Vex in some ways, because Vex want to destroy all sentient life to cleanse the universe. So I really like the idea of having an enemy that, almost like the Arbiter from Halo, right? Like I was a huge Halo fan. That's why I went to go work at Bungie in the first place. The level of effort was really high. So my assumption was not necessarily everyone's going to be playing this content. I'm going to take a risk, and we'll make it open-ended. You can either choose to kill the captain or save the captain. And depending on whether or not you killed Mithrax, you got a different ending in that quest. It was the only quest in D2 to do that. So what I thought was really cool was that Mithrax ended up becoming, he got like his own seasonal release. So my humble little fallen captain from that mission I made, back at D2 launch, became like a central character in a huge release, and that was a deep honor to me. I really, really love seeing that my work gets to live on and do more things. So we'll let this rip for a little bit.
We have a whole new set of topics to discuss today, including some reprised exotic missions, a look at the PvP map pack, and a couple more details at the end.
That's Josh, my buddy, anime figures. He's holding Outbreak. And that's the gun that's on the coffee table in the stream that they're all sitting around. I wish they didn't have the Whisper propped up in the back corner here, right behind Willie there, because it's an insane prop. It probably weighs like 30 pounds. The center of it is an aluminum pole. So like very, very high quality.
Well, I think in the first few months of D2, I want to say like the first 3 to 5 months, we felt like there weren't enough secrets in the game.
He's right. Destiny was missing secrets. D2 was missing secrets that D1 had. I mean, that was the whole point of like, should we bring back Black Spindle? Good God, that's hard to say. So Black Spindle was the progenitor of the Whisper. The Black Spindle was a sniper rifle in D1 that you could get through a secret ending in a strike. It provided the Black Spindle, which was a phenomenally powerful sniper rifle at the time. And, we felt it was very, very important to carry on the soul of Black Spindle in the Whisper and recreate it, make it new, make it special for D2. So Rob's an artist. I'm a designer. So Rob didn't really have too much, strong feelings about encounter design. He just wanted to make stuff that looked really cool. He was really into the traversal parts of it. So I just kind of let Rob run wild on building the traversal sections. So that was kind of how Rob and I's process worked really well. And that was awesome. So he went crazy on all the traversal bits. But I think I talked about this at the GCX thing. But the layout for the Whisper mission, at least the combat section, I think, is a 180 top-down mirror. So if you flip the axes, the horizontal axes of the Black Spindle strike. So if you walked into the room and went right in Black Spindle, you walked in the room and went left in Whisper. We didn't have a ton of resources. We were on the live services team. We're really scrappy. That's how people would say it in the industry. And we wanted to build this, we had this really big ambition to build this super cool thing. So I was like, well, we got to save time and effort where we can. So instead of just making a space from scratch, blank slate, let's start with this strike, and working with Alex, he pulled all the geo out, flipped that shit over, and then started, blocking in the space in the opposite shape of the original strike. Let's let Rob talk and all.
Got here on screen kind of some, if we can call it as such.
Yeah.
This is a sketch that Rob and I drew in a conference room. I drew the really crappy blue shit down on the bottom. Rob drew the green shit because he's a good artist. What is interesting about this, if you look at the staggered steps here, we were thinking about Lord of the Rings when they're going through the mountain pass. And if you look at the top thing where there's like a little orange or red square kind of. So the little red square is, what if that fell away? And if you look down below it, there's like a big green circle kind of down here. That's the same concept. As you step on it, it falls away. It scares you. You don't die, but that became those moving push blocks in the shipped Whisper mission. So like having those things move back and forth, that all came from this concept and this idea. The other thing, and you'll notice this when they get to footage of the Whisper, is all of the floors, all of the places where the player walks are at odd angles to make you feel like you're going to fall off of it. What we did in the game is give it collision that was flat, so you didn't actually fall off of it. But it's all an optical illusion, and it makes you think that you're going to fall off. So it's really close, and I mean, like, it's like an angle like this, but we've got this invisible collision like right here. So you're never going to fall off of it unless you walk off the edge. You're not going to slide off of it. We didn't want that to happen. If you look at the right here, we've got these different sections here. It's all kind of a spiral taking you lower. And so if you look below that, there's like a pit and there's this high point. And I was thinking about how we make players in a game like Destiny, who have an incredible amount of mobility, go in one direction, but not be able to turn around and go back where they came from. So that's how we had these really long drops and all these really, crazy things going on. This would be, the concept is that the players come in from the top and they drop in. And so this is a giant guy. This is actually the size of your Guardians. This was just like this object of power. That was the thing I was thinking in my head. We didn't know it was going to be Whisper at the time. We didn't know that we could even get Black Spindle as a gun because that's a dependency on another team. The Weapons Sandbox team, they made like all the guns, they made combatants, they made player abilities. So like your subclasses and all that stuff. So we had to go talk to them about giving us Black Spindle. The Whisper it was one of the worm gods, one of the hive worm gods, and it was the pocket dimension for that worm god. So if you're thinking, well, we killed Zol in Warmind, right? In that strike. Yes, absolutely. But he's the worm god of death. When the worm's physical form was destroyed, it retreats into its pocket dimension, which was the Whisper. Well, I'm getting into deep lore here, but this is why I made all these choices. It was the opposite version of the grave of Ulan-Tan in the Lost Oasis, Lost Sector. So Ulan-Tan was really important because that was a guardian in the lore that mixed light and darkness and kind of blurred the line and was, sort of a heretic in that regard because the speaker didn't, was very against using the darkness in any way. As you know, in Destiny, Guardians have now adopted the darkness in one form or the other. So this is sort of the beginning of the Guardian's path towards darkness and being tempted. So when you went through the Whisper and you defeated the essence of Zol, you actually claimed what would be the most powerful expression to a Guardian of Hive God power. In my mind, if the most powerful version of a worm god's energy was a sword in Hive logic, because it is, what would it be in a Guardian's hands? Well, the Black Spindle sniper rifle. So that was my whole thinking for that. In this
And
video,
the hardcore, super engaged players.
I noticed
really
changes.
was.
I'm like, yo, this is
If
shit
you
I
can
didn't
pass
build
a test
because
where
even
mind
though I
is
made
gonna
this
be
5 years
tested,
ago,
you're
this
fighting,
was a huge
Yeah.
part of my life. I worked on
is
this
gonna
for
be
like 6
tested, and
months.
you're gonna be able
I've played this
to
mission
pass those
thousands of
tests,
times,
right?
Yeah.
thousands of
Your
times.
movement,
Like I
your
built all
mind,
the
your
combat in
fighting.
it. I had to test
If
the
you can get past these
traversal. I was
tests, you're
the
gonna be
the
rewarded with great power.
feature lead for this
Yeah.
this
And that was the
project.
contract,
So
and so-
another express goal of the Whisper was we wanted to make something because this was a love letter to the community, a gift to the community. We were putting secrets back in the game. We wanted this to be not immediately obvious. We wanted things to be hidden within the hidden. We wanted the secret thing to have secrets. Creating something that I know a player is not going to get on their first try, but a streamer or a YouTuber is going to play it 500 times and they're going to carry their community. They're going to get better at it. They're going to explore and find more stuff. That was one of the, the core audiences that we were targeting. That might sound a little, heretical or blasphemous. Like, what AAA developer would explicitly build content for the hardcore? Exclusive content that might push players out. There's a barrier to entry. You may not be good enough to do this. Well, we did that, and I thought it was really important. I stood by that decision, and I said, you know what? What I'm going to do is when this goes live, I will carry people, and I did that both times with 0 Hour and Whisper. I spent the first 2 weeks just doing carries for randoms. I would carry someone through the entirety of Whisper, and I'd be like, hey, you want to know a secret? I'm the guy that made this. And they'd go like, ha ha, ha, you're funny, man. Thanks.
Tell us what it was like kind of imagining that space and bringing it to life.
I'm on IO, and I found this place that I've never seen. I didn't know existed.
Yeah.
And where does it go?
I want to throw this out there. I chose IO for a couple reasons. And Rob really liked it because of the Vex palette, right angles, all these cubes and squares and rectangles. I chose IO because I knew that was not a super popular place where players were going to be. And keeping a secret is important for the beginning of it. You need very few people to discover it for it to be a secret. And then they start talking about it and it just spreads like wildfire and goes crazy. And it worked. It was totally right on. The Lost Oasis was a big bubble that players would pop into every now and then, but you would only go there if you had like bounties to do, kill taken. So we had another thing that was just a really good synergy for us to make a lot of really cool stuff without a huge level of effort. We don't need the palette team to go create us a bespoke layout or, set of tools to build an environment with. We use pre-existing things. We lit them in a really clever way. We use them in ways that weren't done before in the game. And that helped us make this, more efficiently with a smaller team. which is one of the things we're doing here at Fractal Grove. We're making things very efficiently with a smaller team.
There's a really
Green
cool
room.
anecdote.
Okay, so I will say this. I didn't really do anything with the green room. Rob and I had this concept for a space that we wanted to be a maze. And we were like drawing a traditional maze. So we wanted to make a player trap. Rob had been iterating on the space for probably 2 weeks. And neither of us really liked it. And we were like, dude, it's not coming together. We can't figure it out. And he goes, I want to do something fucking crazy. And I was like, all right, dude, like go for it, bro. And I was like, yeah, bro, fucking send it. Let's go. There he goes. Okay, I'm just going to do it in gray box first. So I want to say there were some bespoke assets just in this room that got made for it because there wasn't a way to do one-to-one with the gray box layout. And what I mean by gray box is when you're making a video game, there's a stage of design where you just use primitives, use boxes, cubes, spheres. There's no real texture or anything on them. You just kind of slap all that shit together and it helps you like squint and kind of see what this gameplay is going to be like. So we were at that stage. I remember I went home for the weekend on like Friday. Rob stayed in the office all fucking weekend. I came in on Monday. He goes, dude, you got to check this out. His hair is all crazy. As soon as I saw this room, I was like, bro, this is it. This is fucking sick.
What was it like bringing this kind of very iconic, I guess I'd say, Destiny room to life?
Yeah, well, this is funny because there was this thing that we wanted to try, right? Make a room that has a trap in the center that if you mess up, you end up going down the trap and you get punished for it. And when you get out, you end up back in the room. And it just happens again and again and again. And there's all these different ways that you try to find your way out of this room.
Right.
We had Cosmo and Dylan. We had a bunch of our testers and designers in there.
Yeah.
And I just waited, right? And I waited for someone to find the hidden shortcut, right? Like what would happen what's going to happen when they find that hidden shortcut?
Yeah.
And so the first person
This moment was
found it,
really
they
funny.
just screamed and started laughing, and then
Dylan and Cosmo were running around before they found the trap door. They were like, we don't know how to get out of this room. It's not possible. And we were like, yes, it is. And we showed them, and the trap door was, you drop down, you just turned around and crouched, and the exit was right underneath where you dropped down. So people ran around this whole fucking room trying to figure out where to go, and the exit was literally right below where they walked in. Like no one found it in the playtest organically. We showed him, and Dylan was the person who screamed. And then he's like, you motherfuckers. It was so funny. It was such a good time. We were like, is this too crazy? They're like, no. They will find it. What was really cool about that is that was one of the secrets that lasted past the first day. And that made me go, we're going to be okay, guys. This secret is going to stay a secret, and it's going to be one of the coolest things ever. So
everybody started finding it, and
swords were
What some
not
of the bigger
nearly as good
challenges
back
that
then.
you have to overcome in order to
So
make sure that they were
swords have
fitting for
like
today's
made a
sandbox?
part of this traversal a little trivial. Same with like strand tethers.
Whole state,
Yeah.
just like extremely quickly. So we had to.
All right,
beef
so
up the
yeah,
number
this
of
is cool. That
combatants
ankle
that are in
breaker was
these
one of my
encounters,
favorite
and,
hazards that
later
Rob
on,
put
I
in
might
there.
talk
That ankle
more
breaker
about,
killed so many people. There was just a
ankle
little
breaker.
block
Too
that
many
popped out and
weapons.
hit you right in the
Totally.
feet
We can
and
come
would
back
just
to that in
yeet
a
you off
second,
the
but,
edge or
I
kill
think
you.
Also, too, really quickly,
That was the funniest when it would just
back
outright
in the
kill
day-
you. The Titan boots, Lion Rampant, those were also like Titans with Lion Rampant and like Shoulder Charge could skip all of this and land on the ledge. They could go all the way past that center column. Willie says it at one point in this, is that the design for this space is actually so good that they didn't really need to do anything. They left it all alone and it still worked. It was still challenging enough with all of the movement expression that players have.
one time I tried to take a coworker through on a Saturday, and
Yeah.
So Rob is talking about how he tried to take a coworker through it. And by no means is he a hardcore player, but he ended up taking like a VP. He took someone that was really high up and they couldn't fucking get past the beginning. They just kept dying over and over again. So he felt super bad about it. So Rob and I always like butt heads on accessing the thing, how long the timer was. So I'm glad that he preserved the 20-minute timer because I felt very strongly that the 20-minute timer was correct. So what they did for the reprisals is they put in a normal mode or a heroic mode, and the legendary is the hardcore one. So they gave players like an easier mode for these by making the timer 40 minutes instead of 20 minutes. The amount of time you have in a 40-minute run is insane. You had plenty of time. Like, I guess that's the point I'm trying to make. You had plenty of fucking time. Solo clear was a big feels good. It was an accomplishment. You could get faster and faster and faster, and that was the coolest part. I remember talking to some of the community members like this madman Puns. Punz was getting his clears down to like 8 minutes. So when I would meet community members who were like, this is too hard, or if I had feedback in the studio, I go, there are human beings out there who love this so much they can beat it in 8 minutes. So what's your excuse? You know, like, just go get good at it. I'm not going to hand you this because you're crying that it's hard. It's meant to be hard. There's a ton of leeway in this. I felt very, very good about the difficulty balance that I got into the first ones.
Spent like 7 hours just trying to get a few runs because of the public event.
Right.
And that
The public event timer was actually just bad logic.
So you'll be talking to
And
Eris Morn. Eris Morn's gonna tell
because
you
of the
some
very
really cool
first
stuff. I
weekend,
don't wanna
you
give
know,
it
like I
away.
said, I sat there with everybody. I sat with everyone. I knew that pain. I was there. So it's not like Bungie just fired this shit off and went, haha, suck it, nerds. No, I was there. I was sitting there alongside everybody doing carries, waiting for 6 hours. I started getting DMs on Discord. People were calling me from the office. And it just turned out that the issue was the code that scheduled public events was using true RNG and experienced a statistical rarity that was fucking insane. It was like a once in 11 years statistical probability that it was going to be Cabal again. What we did after that, so this is really cool, and it changed Destiny since then because Whisper exposed this error. What we did was we added a weighted RNG that said if you got this public event twice in an hour, you're not going to get it again. Yeah, Cabal again.
You're not gonna
Okay, so the thing I wanted to point out to you guys here, which I think is really exciting, is it looks like they put Sherpa switches into the Whisper. So this is a little Oracle. He's shooting it with Mountaintop, and you're going to see a platform pop out that makes this jump across easier. This is new. So pop, boom, and he's going to have it transmats in. Easier jump. So that's really fucking cool. So the concept of Sherpa switches came out with 0 Hour because we realized that was one of the hardest parts of Whisper, especially doing a carry, is you would just cruise. And I remember telling people that I carried who were, you know, friends of mine, I go, okay, traversal's hard. You guys need to practice it. So what I'm going to do is just rip through traversal and I'll be in combat. You need to catch up to me. That kind of sucked because, like, I'm supposed to be the homie carrying you and you're witnessing my glory, but you can't do that because now I'm fucking 10 miles away from you and you're over here struggling to like hit a jump and you feel extra bad and stupid. So Sherpa switches were genius. If you think about player inputs over time as like a waveform and you plot it on a graph, you have this spike of really high inputs. You got to be really precise and like quick, and your pacing is on and you're jumping at the right time. When you do that for the whole 20 minutes, it's not fun. It becomes exhausting and every misstep feels very punishing. So what I wanted to do was allow there to be these really tight execution moments, but then something that was like, oh, just a quick little triple jump. So I'm assuming that there's a lot more, and they probably don't want to show all the Sherpa switches. So they're going to come through here and do this like triple jump section, which I really liked. Rob described this as parkour back in the day. He was like, yeah, we need like a parkour section. So we called this parkour. That's what this section was supposed to be.
Yeah.
It was very heavily inspired by parkour and that kind of thing. I love that Vandal back there. He's my favorite. I really love this room.
You know, before we conclude
This
our
was just a
journey
cool as
here,
fuck room.
Willie, actually, on your
And
side,
every
are there
single
any
one of these
changes in
holes with the
particular
like
that you're
whirlpools on
excited
them
about
just
with
shot
this-
you into
this
the
updated
bottom
version?
and you would die instantly.
Excited about
You had to
the-
know the
the
correct one.
boss fight.
I don't remember who suggested it, but someone was like, "Oh, you should randomize the hole so it changes every time." And I'm like, "That's not fun." And they're like, "Yeah, it is, because once they figure it out, it's done." And I'm like, "That's okay." So optimization was the key, and sharing information was the key. So I vetoed that. I said, "No, make it the same hole every time." Totally fine. I stand by that decision. I think it was great.
Up next, we've also got, obviously, another iconic one, 0 Hour. Absolutely.
Yeah,
Can you tell us
Trevor.
a little bit about
Trevor
what this original
gang.
concept was?
I love Trevor.
So
Trevor was
was
so
really
fucking cool.
inspired
Trevor was
by
not
this-
fun to make, by the way,
there's this
either.
Japanese
Trevor was like
game
3
show
months of
called
nightmares and
Takeshi's
panic
Castle.
and
It's been around a
anxiety
while.
and not working. It was either
Borrowed from
incredibly
Natural Show
frustrating
Market for a
or
long
so
time,
trivial
for
and
what it is.
unnoticeable
And they have
that I
this
was like,
one
we got to
bit
cut this. And it was like that for
where the
3 months.
contestants-
Most Extreme Elimination
So we were like,
Challenge or
"Man,
Takeshi's Castle.
If we had
Huge
all this
inspiration
mission,
for
that would
us.
be amazing. So we had this thing that we called the Hazard for a long time. The Hazard is
This is the first mock-up for the Trevor maze. So I drew the bottom one with all the squares. And the point was I wanted to make it a loop that worked in one direction. The door was at the opposite side. So I wanted players to go one direction and backtrack because it was less confusing than making it this like circuitous, like really weird and windy maze. I just kept pushing for more and more simplicity. I realized the way we were dropping players into the maze, they would just drop. And then there's this big robot that just fucking aced your shit and you had no idea what was going on. That wasn't good. So what we did was we backed that space up a bit. So I was like, what if we put that like observation post, that, you know, administrative office up above the hangar, and we dropped a player in there. We gave them a little screen and there was a big window they could look out of and they could see the maze below them. So then we put the light, the big red light on Trevor. We gave him some noises and you could see like this light sweeping in the darkness, and it just all of a sudden gelled and came together. It was perfect. This whole section was inches from getting cut. It just wasn't working. So I'll let Rob talk about the design for it because the aesthetic of it, 100%. That was Rob. Rob was running with that. He was working with the concept artists and everything. I think he did a great job with it. Made Trevor look really cool. Making Trevor scary was all about slowing down the player's progress. So I hit this spot where I was like, I need to slow players down. We need to be more careful about it. So we had all these other pieces that were sort of working. And the final piece of the puzzle was this like Duel of Fates Star Wars Episode 1 moment where Darth Maul and Qui-Gon Jinn are looking at each other through like the force field walls. And that was it. Oh, here we go. We're at the beginning of 0 hour.
Center, honestly.
I'm just going to mute them while we go through this. This is cool. This is basically unchanged from what I built. This is identical to, like, I placed that shield generator on the wall. I built that combat section. They did a little bit more combat tuning. They have some better tools in the combat sandbox than I had when I built this. And I think this is a little more interesting and probably something that you guys want to see, which is really cool. So yeah, I use these shanks with different shields here to encourage players to use different types of elemental damage because you really had to back in the day. I turned up their difficulty like really, really high so that they were not easy to deal with unless you had the correct loadout. So it looks like they added this combat encounter to this other spot. And at one point, Willie talks about how they didn't really need to do too much to update it. Mostly what they had to do was just add some extra enemies because players are more destructive now than they were when I built this. Rook is shooting a Night Stalker tether. This encounter right here was intended to be dismantled with a tether. I placed the servitor and all of its accompanying shanks and all of the other enemies around it in range of a single tether shot. So all you had to do was pop the first servitor and you had the tether and it would hit everybody. It was all intentional. And I think it's really cool that they still do that. Like you can see it. There's tethers up there. So this is the thing that I was talking about where when you hit the switch, we had the Duel of Fates and the thing dropped down. So you can zip around super fast, but now you're stopped. And this electric wall stops you from continuing. I'm going to throw this out there. So I was talking about things that, I really liked about making this. I think my biggest point of, I guess not regret, but just stress and concern and where I felt like the activities weren't super well crafted was in combat. I did all the combat myself. There's not a lot of dynamism to the combat. It's pretty static, which I think is good when you're under a time crunch. So it actually worked out that way. But the combat itself isn't particularly interesting. It's more just hard. Use the right tool, figure out each combat puzzle. Once you've solved it, it's good, and you're just optimizing your time. I would have liked to do something a little more interesting and have it, be cool. In Whisper, you got, you would start with one boss, and as you damage that boss, the next boss would become active. So if you tried to just burn one down, you would have all three of them in your face immediately. You had to be careful with your placement and how you cleared the room. All that stuff mattered. So I guess maybe I'm being too critical of myself, but I felt like I could have done a better job, moving in reinforcements, making it feel more like a pitched battle. Because it was always just kind of like, it was more of a shooting gallery, like target practice, than it was like this big, memorable combat puzzle. I think the reason why it was okay is because the activity itself just stood up, and there were so many other things that were cool looking and exciting about it that no one really pointed at combat and said, this is kind of boring. Personally, I think the combat I made was boring and could have been done better. So I'm excited to see what a team of people with more time were able to do to really dress it up.
The name Trevor, because it was paradoxical. I went to school with a kid named Trevor who was the nicest kid in the entire school.
Rob is being nice because he's representing a huge company. The way we came up with the name for Trevor was we go, what's the name of the most annoying person you could possibly imagine? So that was where we started. This is not a slight against anyone named Trevor. I have friends named Trevor. We were just picking a name. It was sort of arbitrary, but it was like, who's like this dorky kid, you know, like, and that's what we're going for. I think it's more funny to say that it was like, you know, a bit derisive and we were trying to make fun of somebody. It's just a lighthearted poke. We ended up making it an acronym anyway, TR3VR, and it didn't really mean anything. And then we, you know, did a whole thing at GuardianCon to figure out what
It's
it
nice
meant.
to everybody come up with the acronyms. So the one that I had was Tracking Robotic 3-Vectored Reducer.
Oh my God, Rob was
Right,
so
Tom?
into that. He was like, dude, this is what we
Yeah.
got to call it. Of
Tracking
course, the
Robotic
community
was in
chose.
it. What they decided on was Tame, Relaxed, Triple Vac Roommate.
Yeah, tame, relaxed, triple vac roommate. Yeah, Rob's was way better. Trevor was supposed to be like a maintenance robot. He was supposed to be cleaning out the hangar where everyone's spaceship went and hung out when you flew into the tower. The narrative conceit for 0 Hour was that the tower was under attack and they were stealing something. The Fallen just infiltrated. It didn't happen, you know, it happened at like night under the cover of darkness. This was all like very sneaky, and the community would have named him Trashy McTrashface. I wasn't opposed to the line of questioning. I thought it was a fun exercise, but I was not invested in the answer whatsoever because I knew the community was going to pick silly, stupid shit, which is fine. And it was great. And it was fun. I'm really happy to see that the Whisper came back. The Whisper was one of my favorite guns in the game. I'm a big sniper guy. I like shooting long guns in real life too. I think it's really fun. You know, we have this like sort of meditative moment as you're like lining up your shot and like reading your dope sheet. All that shit is really fun to me. And so being able to make a mission with what I believed was the best sniper rifle in the game, it's fucking amazing. So, and it's one of the best feelings ever. This gun was intended to be for PvE. It was supposed to be boss killer. For those of you who don't know, the way it works is it's a sniper rifle that only has a 3-round magazine. But if you land all 3 shots, it automatically refills your magazine with magic bullets that don't exist. So you could just keep ripping with that sucker forever if you were a good shot. There was a lot of internal concern about the efficacy of the Whisper. There was concern from like raid design and like project leadership that the Whisper was just too strong of a tool and it was trivializing encounters and making things too hard for the other design teams. But I very much didn't agree with that. And so, you know, my argument was always like, Whisper takes skill to use. There's almost no bosses that just literally fucking stand there and let you tee off on the weak spot. They're all, you know, doing this big animation and moving around, and you got to like hit this one little tiny weak spot repeatedly. And if you don't do that, boom, your ammo dumps. And then you're like, well, shit, I should have just taken a rocket launcher because the level of skill is much lower. Outbreak, when it came out, was kind of meh. I know that it got buffed and changed around for a while, which is really, really cool. But with this perk system, it looks like Outbreak is pretty fucking cool now. So that is exciting. My pitch for the weapon for 0 Hour was Vex Mythoclast. And I wanted to give Nano Phoenix, but reprised and reskinned as the ship. You know, obviously that didn't happen. I got a big hell no and fuck off, you know, like, how dare you? That is a raid ship. This is a special weapon. Very strong opinions about why it was not doable. Instead, what we got was the ship that a lot of people didn't like. I personally came around on it, and I thought it was really cool. I thought it was cool in the studio. I didn't understand why people were so mad about it, and I think it was because the Whisper ship was just so cool, because what we did was we took the Agonarch Carve ship from the Oryx raid in D1, Kingsfall, and reskinned that with like a super wacky like space skin, and it looked fucking incredible. Really, really cool. And so I was like, well, let's do that again, but let's do Nano Phoenix. I wanted to do Mythoclast. Mythoclast was like very firmly no, can't do that. There's a lot of issues with Mythoclast being in the game, but also the way it functions. It has to be rebuilt. There's no time and resources to do that in a short time for this. No, we got Outbreak. And I was like, oh shit, we got Outbreak. Let's give them the Nano Phoenix ship from the Wrath of the Machine. So obviously they didn't want to do that because they want Wrath of the Machine to have the Wrath of the Machine ship reward. So yeah, I get it. Totally understand. But I just think all that would have been way cooler personally. So one of the last things I made in Destiny was it's Cooley. Hell yeah. I forgot Cooley was on here. So one of the last things I made in Destiny was the new light. When Destiny went free to play and they added in the brand new starting area and the Cosmodrome and all that, I worked on the remaster of the Cosmodrome to bring it into D2. And I worked with Cooley on the Risk Runner mission where you did a little bit of traversal and got up to this one spot. And I got you an exotic for free, like right at the beginning of the game. Cooley's a super, super awesome guy, really into PvP design and spaces. He just understands PvP map and like conflict flow, which is the most important part of multiplayer map design. It's cool that that he's back. He left Bungie around when I did, and he actually went to go work at Polyarch. He worked on Moss 2, I think, and Glassbreakers. I guess he came back to Bungie late last year and was working on this map pack for all y'all. So what he's doing, labor of love. This is a free map pack for PvP. In the past, Bungie didn't do anything for PvP. Like, it was pretty unsupported. So the fact that there's going to be some new maps coming, that's fucking great. That is a huge improvement. The double-edged sword of live services is that some of the less interesting things like Guardian Games or The Dawning, where you have to bake cookies, comes out of that team. But so does the Whisper, so does Zero Hour, so do PvP maps. And this is the problem, is that when you make a game as a service, the way you do that is you have to spend astronomical amounts of money up front, but then the game goes on to life support, and they really, really scale the team down. So the people who are on the live services team have the worst job, where they don't get any support, no resources, and they have to keep squeezing blood from the stone. So finding creative ways to do that and give people free big chunks of content that are seasonal releases is very fucking hard to do when you don't get like a whole team of artists in a year and a half to build an expansion, because it does not work that way with live seasons. You need to be planning rolling content for like 2 years in advance. It is one of the hardest things to do in game development. These guys are really fucking cool guys. They're really passionate. They care about the game more than anyone else at the studio. I know how much that these guys care about this experience and care about this game. The live services team has to make the most amazing things possible with the fewest resources, no time, nothing. It's one of the hardest jobs you can possibly have in game development. The other thing that's crazy about this release that is really exciting to me is that this is a free release. This is the bump before you get the final shape. This is like what we did with the Whisper before
I count myself
Forsaken. Because we were coming out of Warmind, and Warmind was mixed. We were really trying to get people excited about Forsaken. I don't think it's any secret that Destiny wasn't in a super happy place at that time, because Curse of Osiris bombed. I'm not going to pretend Curse of Osiris was a great release. I was not happy with the things that we put out for Curse of Osiris. I thought Infinite Forest fell flat pretty hard. I did work on that, and I tried my best to like really make it shine. I just don't think the direction worked out super well with it. My main contribution to Curse of Osiris was the quest to go to Saint 14's grave. I signed myself onto that project with a pitch to build that quest. I also had to build Infinite Forest. I had to build Heroic Adventures. So my quest wasn't as good as I wanted it to be. I think we did get some really good moments. We got some good reactions to it. It's tough. It's the thing that I was trying to say to you guys about how there's not a lot of resources, and like having Gambit get built with that team with not a lot of resources is wild. I know Gambit is a very divisive activity. As a game designer, I think it's a really brave choice to try to make asymmetrical PvPvE. Admittedly, Gambit wasn't the most fun thing to play, but I just really, really like the concept on paper. I think, and I hope that this is a really good last hurrah. It's a big honor to be a part of my work being that like bump that gets people really excited. I think it's cool. It's a really big honor. It's really neat to see 5 years later. Like that's just crazy. It's cool. It's a very strange feeling. It's really, really interesting. I guess it remains to be seen how they present Whisper and Zero Hour, because they haven't really talked about that yet. The only thing that they mentioned was Whisper's no longer triggered by the public event. You have to go to Eris Morn. It's funny because I played it probably, as much as some of the most hardcore streamers, especially because I was like making that content. But it was just really fucking fun. Like those missions are fun. Bungie sold to Sony for like 3.6 billion or some shit like that. So very, very, very successful, inexpensive, valuable software studio that built things that are cultural inflection points for, you know, American society and shit and like Western civilization. So I'm a nerd. I'm your guys' nerd. I'm one of you. I just like making video games. Like that's it. That's all I want to do. I want to continue making video games. I want to make shit that you guys like. That's what matters to me. That's the whole point. That's what I want to do. I would be happy if I could pay my bills and make video games, tell stories,